All right. So when we left off with the Svelte Calcite application, everything was working. We're all good. We followed the Calcite Components tutorial to create a mapping app. Awesome. Great. Now we're going to dive a little bit more into the Svelte side of things and talk about how we can componentize this particular application. Componentize a word? I'm going to go with it's a word. So we're going to break this up a bit. Not too much, just a little bit. And we're going to make the most of the layout a separate component that can have a slot, and that slot will have the map part of the app. And because we're breaking it up, we have to do a few things differently than we've done before so far. So let's take a look and see how that might work. Okay, so here's our app as it was working. Works awesome, works great, and just one big file in this app.svelte file, right? So we're gonna want to break this up just a little bit more. Mainly what we want to do is we want to look at creating a slot inside of a component, and that slot can go ahead and take the map. All right, so let's go ahead and create a new component in here. Let's call it the app shell. All right, so new file, shell.svelte. Let's just copy everything that we've got in here because most of it is going to go in here. All right, so if we come over to the app shell part, we're still going to be importing all the Calcite stuff, so we'll leave all of this here. We're not going to be creating the map view. We're not going to set up the config in here, so we can actually remove these pieces here. That means that we can remove the view container and the v API key. So we're still going to have the active widget. We have this click handle action bar click here. We're going to manage the shell and everything, but basically we want to take out the map part in here. And we're just going to go ahead and add the slot component here. Now, basically, this is going to mean that anything that we add inside of this component will just show up here. All right. We'll play around with that in a second here. So let me get all this kind of sorted out. All right. So we've got our on mount. On mount's going to do everything, except we're not going to have a view available to us, right? So we're not creating the map. We're not creating the map view. We won't have a view available to us, so we need to define a view here as well. So we'll just define an empty view like so. Nothing's gonna happen, right? So okay, so right now nothing's gonna happen because it's an empty view. These widgets aren't gonna be bound to anything at all. We don't have a map here, so yeah, there's not gonna be an item as well, right? Because we don't have a map to provide anything to it. So let's come over here to the app.svelte. Now we can clean a bunch of this stuff up over here. So if I come over here, I can pretty much remove all the Calcite stuff because we're not referencing anything Calcite in here. We are not going to be loading any of the widgets in here. And we're still going to set the API key. We have a view container. We don't need these. We need item. No, we don't need item just yet. Actually, we'll leave it for now. All right. So, okay. So we have a view container. We've got the item. We'll leave the on mount, and we'll leave that moving the widget. Let's get rid of all this. And we don't need this in here. Yeah, where's this? There we go. Okay, let's get rid of all that code that we don't need. We're going to import the app shell. So let's do it over here. Import app shell from appshell.svelte. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to grab my little map, my view div here, which is where I'm going to be showing the map. And let's get rid of all this. Okay. So we have the app shell here. And inside the app shell, we're just going to go ahead and add the view, and it's going to be bound to that view container. So all that's going to work. We don't need any of this code, or I'm sorry, any of the CSS here. So we get rid of that. And that's going to work. And something's going to happen. So, okay. So we've still got our app shell. But you notice that this isn't bound to anything anymore. These widgets do work, but they're not bound to the view, so they have no data to work with. There's no layers here. I can't change the base map of the map view. There's no legend because it doesn't know about that. No bookmarks, doesn't know about them, and no print. Print just won't work at all. It just seems there's an error. Right, so yeah. So okay. So I need to kind of set this up somehow. I need a way to pass the view, and for like the item reading here, I need a way to pass the item details to it. And I could try to pass them along as props to the app shell when things get updated. That kind of it doesn't work 100% the way that I'd like it to. So what we're going to do is we're going to dive into Svelte Stores. So if we come over here in the documentation. So one of the things I really like with Svelte is it comes with this Svelte Store module. And actually Svelte comes with a lot of really cool modules by default, things for like transition and a bunch of other really cool UI things you can do. One of the coolest is the fact that it has store information or store module already built in. I don't have to worry about bringing in a third-party library to create a store for me, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new store file. I'll just call it store.ts in here. I'm going to import from Svelte Store, and we're going to import the writable because we want to be able to write to this store, right? We're going to be updating it, and it's doing some really cool things with it. And basically, I want to have a state object. So I'm going to export a state. Now, you don't have to call it state. I just happen to call it state because that's kind of what I think of it. And I need two things that are going to be happening. Two properties that are going to be shared state between my components. The first one's going to be the view, right? That's going to be the map view. By default, it's going to be null. The next is going to be that portal item. So I need that item, which is going to be an empty object for now. All right, so perfect. So I've got my store in here. You can look over the writable documentation to learn a bit more about it. As you can see here, it has a subscribe method, so I can subscribe to updates on the store. I have update methods, so I can update the state of my store. It's very cool, very straightforward, completely reactive. I dig it. It's really neat, and I'm a huge fan of it, right? So one of the things I want to do is I want to go into my app.svelte, and I'm going to import the store. So I'll import from store. I'm going to import that state object. My state object, I have a view that I'm going to be using. Now let's look here at store documentation real quick. I want to point this out. So prefix stores with $sign to access their values, right? So if I want to access the value on the store object, which is my state object, I can prefix it with that $sign. And now I can set it, right? So instead of calling a set method, I can just go ahead and say that $sign state is going to be equal to something. So when I am done over here, say map.when, so I can do two things here. So what I'm going to do is I'll do them both here. Let's say that state.view is going to be equal to the view, and state.item, oh my gosh, is going to be equal to item, right? I don't really need this item object up here anymore, so I can really just go ahead and say that state item is equal to the map portal item, and we can do away with this here. Awesome. Okay, so now we're ready to start using that state object, the store, inside of our app shell component. Okay, so let's go ahead and handle that here. So we come over to the app shell component, and we're going to import that as well. Okay, so now that I have my state object here, I need to do a couple of things. Well, I'm really going to do one thing with it. So I'm going to go and subscribe to any updates made. So state.subscribe. And when I do that, I'm going to get the current state that's been updated. So I got my value here. So now I can say that this item is going to be equal to value dot item, and the view is going to be equal to value dot view, right? But I need to do a few things here. So if I run it now, let's see what happens, right? So I run it now, and notice that there's still nothing happening here because this view object, right, this variable here, even though it's reactive, this was already set on mount. So on mount ran before the subscribe update was done. The widgets have already been built. And these, no, they're just, it's like I passed this view function to some other functions. It's not going to go and run them again. It's not going to update this one. It's already in here. It only does that if something is inside of my DOM element here, right? So if I come down over here, you can see the item is now the same as it was before. It's got the details, has my thumbnail, description. That's working because it is part of my DOM here, but the actual view is not. So just having it on mount here isn't going to work for me. And I want to make sure too, because I'm updating two different items. So I want to make sure that if I come up here, so I'm updating I have an update for the view, an update for the item. Those get updated separately, right? I mean, I guess it really doesn't, I mean, these aren't going to initialize two subscribes, I don't think, but I want to make sure. So let me just check here. So I'm going to do a let loaded equal false, and oops. Then what I'm going to say here is that if view, so if this is a null, right? If view and not loaded, then do something, right? I need to run a function of some sort. So let's get rid of the on mount, and let's just turn this into a regular function. What should I call this here? Let's call this function create shell, and let's just get rid of some code here, and there should be an error down here. Yep. Okay, so now what I can do is I can go ahead and run this create shell inside of here. So this is going to create all of my widgets. Actually, create shell is a bad word. Let's go and it's called a init widgets. Create shell, I don't like that name. Let's do a init widgets. All right, so let's run that. Go refresh here. There's our map. There we go. And there's our layers and our map. No errors at the bottom, so I know this hasn't run more than once. And all the bookmarks and everything else now works. Print is all set up. I can do a print if I needed to. Change the base map. All right. Street's probably not a very good map for this. Maybe terrain with labels. That's too busy. Newspaper. Okay, that's not so bad. Not great, but not so bad. All right, so there we go. So that's how we can go ahead and componentize parts of our applications, such as the application shell, and then have the map be something that is completely separate from that shell that can be initialized and handled on its own. And then we just can use the slot for that shell to go ahead and put the map in here. I think that is pretty cool. Okay, so that was just a quick look at more Svelte stuff than really the Calcite Components bits, just so that you could take a look and see how some of this stuff kind of works under the hood, and you can actually refactor your Svelte Calcite Components applications to make them a bit more robust, a bit more versatile. Start breaking pieces out as you need them, right? Break a little bit of logic out here and there. So I can go a bit further. Maybe I can make the action bars and the panels their own components as well, and that might be taking a little bit too far. The idea is to kind of have this shell be the shell for my map, but you get the idea. I think that's something that's going to work pretty well going forward. So give it a shot, try it out. Don't forget to leave any comments down below if you have any questions, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you next time. Thank you. I just want to let you know that I've started a new podcast called The Bounding Box, where I'll be talking about geo development, web development, and everything in between. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, on Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and plenty of other places that you can find podcasts.
There are a few episodes available now. We are in a bi-weekly schedule, so every other week. Thank you.